Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Okay, let's move on to political reflections. I wrote over the weekend about Turkey. I said Erdogan will learn what Norman Lamont learned, and the Turkish lira, in my opinion, is teetering at the precipice. And I concluded by saying, now, if the lira crashes, and have a look, this is a longer term chart, and a year's chart, and then a week's chart, you can see a break of 585 is going to take us up to 7 on those charts. I said, if the lira crashes, which looks very likely, the infection will spread out of Istanbul. On that note, Erdogan seems to have lost both Istanbul and Ankara in a stinging double blow. The two cities have been under the control of his Justice and Development Party, the AKP, and its political forebears since 1994. This is a big loss. He launched his own political career by winning an election as mayor in the former Ottoman capital. Party activists were warned, if we stumble in Istanbul, we lose our footing in Turkey. Turkey's biggest cities turned against Erdogan for the first time since 1994. People are not satisfied with the current economic policy of the regime. He's presided over an unprecedented increase in well-being and per capita GDP income, but clearly he's now coming under significant pressure. And the thing is, if you experience something good and then you're losing it, you get more upset, as opposed to never having experienced it. And then Badra Punchline says the US and Israel are going to punish Turkey's Erdogan. Turkey is a global swing state. It has a large and growing economy, a strategic location, a democratic government, mixed views about prevailing international arrangements. Like the other three global swing states, Brazil, India, and Indonesia, Turkey's choices will influence whether today's international order evolves and endures or fragments and fails. Saying US containment strategies against Russia and Iran are undermined by Erdogan's policies. A pall of gloom would have descended on the Western capitals as the realization sinks in that Erdogan will be around as Turkey's helmsman for the foreseeable future. Turkey's presidential and parliamentary elections are due only in 2023. Things have come to a head between the two NATO allies since Russia is due to deliver to Turkey in July the first batch of the missile system. Turkey is buying 4 batteries of the S-400 air defense system for $2.5 billion. Game plan would be to create difficulties for the Turkish economy so the mass discontent rises and threatens Erdogan's popularity. The head of the Nationalist Movement Party, ally and coalition party, a partner of Erdogan, said on Monday, external forces seeking to implement shady machinations over Turkey have failed. Disavow himself of that notion. They haven't failed. Bacelli said that the economic hitman, currency gangs, terrorist groups and intentions lost hope thanks to the will of the nation and got the answer they deserved. Now, do you remember that the Gulf tried to create a strategy called controlled the yield curve, decide the future, and it was a construct on financial market strategy to crush Qatar. Those Gulf boys have gone and looked at what went wrong and they've come back. And I think they've upped their control the yield curve game. In response to Badr, I said, Erdogan is in very big doo-doo. He'll learn what Norman Lamont learned, and the Turkish lira is teetering at the precipice. Of course, last week, a signal of stress was emitted by Turkey when overnight rates touched 1,336%. Do the math. And I take you back to 1998, I think. It can't be 98, can it? I went to England in 79. This must be, much earlier. Mrs. Thatcher told the House of Commons, there is no way in which one can buck the market. And all these populist leaders start believing their own hype. think they can. And then when I wrote a piece called Cold Turkey, I was, President Erdogan was saying, even if they got the dollars, we got our people and our God. And I said, in the markets, that's called a Hail Mary pass. And in that same article, I said, President Trump is an avowed linguistic warfare specialist, has embraced coercive sanction and financial warfare, relishing his financial warfare strategies. And basically, I think he's coming back after that purchase of the S-400 and other issues, and it's going to not be a very pleasant scenario here. A Ukraine comedian who plays an accidental president on television delivered a walloping rebuke to the country's political class in the presidential election on Sunday by emerging first. Poroshenko said of him, he dreams of a soft, submissive, gentle, giggling, inexperienced, weak, ideologically amorphous and politically uncertain president. Will we gift him this? Of course, Ukraine remains one of the NATO-Russia front lines, as we all know. This is Vladimir Zelensky, a comedian waiting for voting results in an election night gathering Sunday in Kiev. My piece over the weekend was called World's End. This photograph is of World's End at the end of the King's Road, which I knew very well because I used to live down there. And I started my article by quoting Antonio Gramsci. The crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. Then I touched on W.B. Yeats, having learnt that Earth lost nearly 60% of its mammals, birds, fish, reptiles and amphibians since 1970. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. The ceremony of innocence is drowned, and the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. Then I move from what we've done to our fellow Earthlings, to a tweet from Sun Charters. The premise of ZERP and NERP was always these are temporary measures for atrial fibrillation of the economy. 10 years later, the same medicine in ever larger dosage is being given to keep the patient alive. The definition of a vegetative state. From there, of course, I went to Algeria, naturally.